the last one. Welcome back, boys and girls. Today we have a bit of a different theme. We've got an AR-15 here from Lewis Machine & Tool. This is our MRP CQB setup. It's a one-piece upper, full floating barrel, 5.56 caliber, and heavy bull barrel. We haven't done anything to it. It's still got the bird cage on it. As much as I'd like to put a Terminator brake on it, just don't have one right now. We put a, if I remember right, Knight's Armament fold up level on here to deal with any cant, but so that we could also have it out of the way if we were just using it for CQB kind of stuff. And about the only thing we don't have on here is we don't have our 45-degree, offset sights to use for really close-up stuff. However, that said, that's not really a big deal with this scope. We've mounted it with a really nice Warren scope ring setup. And you can see this is a one-piece setup, and you've got this bridge right up in the front here. And what that allows you to do, if you don't have a flat top system, full rail system like I've got here, say you've got something a bit more old school, that allows you to situate the scope far enough forward that you still can get proper eye relief. Back to the scope though. This is a pretty unique scope, and in so much that you have both a dual or second focal plane and a first focal plane. I'm trying to talk too fast here. And if you're in the first 1 to 2, 2.5 range, you're in the second focal plane. If you turn the illumination on the side of the scope, you actually have a red dot. However, if I dial it out to 7, 6, 7, 8 power, I have a graduated reticle that's illuminated, and I've got markings for wind, I've got hash marks. Like I say, it's a mill reticle, it's not MOA, it's a fast system, and it's as you can see, pretty accurate. The misses that you saw, those are my fault. I'm just rushing, having a little fun, and trying some holdover and stuff like that. And so I'm not too worried about that. The scope is what you'd expect from Minox, from German-made shot glass. It's the same stuff that's used in other high-end brand glass, and you've got the rugged mil spec for impact-resistant scope body. You've got a 30-year warranty on this scope. You're really not going to be disappointed. For those of you who are worried about having a adjustable turret on a CQB, if you look right here, it locks down. You have adjustments for windage, both of which you have to pull out to actually make your adjustments. You've got a zero stop, and you've got 10 mil of revolution. I was going to say revelation, but that's a different story. We really haven't done anything to this rifle except for put an accu wedge in it and put a shim in the front just to tighten up the bottom and the top. It's nothing. It's not an accurized rifle, but I have found it, to be really accurate. Pretty much have rounds touching at 100 meters with this thing with the current setup as it is. So let's do a little bit more shooting, and then we'll talk a little bit more. what I'm going to be using, I'm going to be shooting off the tripod today, just because I feel like having a bit more of a challenge. This is the Evolution Bipod hub. What I've done is I've taken the legs off of it, I put their adapter, and I'm shooting off a Manfrotto tripod. And that allows me to quickly adapt between having to lie on the ground prone, which I don't really feel like doing today. I wanted something that's a bit more challenging and, you know, gets me up off the ground and onto the tripod. We also have the extendable legs that we can shoot off as well too if we want to shoot sitting or kneeling. But let's get back to some shooting. So we're not shooting terribly far. Set it up at 300 meters. Yeah, you see it's way out there. And just see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Well, I guess the kids were right. I like that dual magazine setup. That's how I actually do my research. I just have my kids like play video games. Just kidding. I actually don't own any video games. I'd rather spend my money on guns. No, you guys can't see it, but I got another target hidden in the grass at 150 meters, so I just switched over to that. That's why you're hearing the big thump. Here's a shot in the grass just to see the difference in sound. So no sound and sound. Let's go back to 300 meters though. There we go, nice. Oh, missed. All right. You can see, really nice scope. Had a little wind today, but I'm not really actually worried about it because it's such a close distance. And this is such a fast round. So I'm pretty easily able to change the magnification. You don't need any of those like funky little handles or anything. You've got this massive lever on there to switch between, you know, any magnification. It's quite a firm turn. Like you're not gonna necessarily have a problem with this thing getting knocked out of place too easy. One thing I would like to do to my rifle after this though is I would like to put an extended charging handle, because you can see it's tucked under here. It's a bit awkward to get at. And that's really about it. You know, very impressive. Now there's no parallax on this thing. You do have a lock for the lighting system though, so you pop that out, give it half a click, and you're back at your last setting. Or you can dial all the way back through. Leave it where you want it. I like to leave it about just under 8. Lock it, and you don't need to worry about it being knocked on and running your batteries out. Neglected to mention here actually is the Minox scopes. I'll come with these nice durable scope covers. They're nice, flexible, almost rubber-like material, and so I think they take a lot more abuse than some of the other more brittle plastics you see. They also lock down fairly flat as well. And they come with the adapter for the front. The back one just clicks on. You've also got the fast focus ring right here, so if you need to get access to that, you can pop this off pretty quick and you can do that. You're not going to have any issues there. You're not going to be fumbling around There's no funky setups like you have on some of the Vortex scopes where you got to put spacers in there and stuff to set the zero. Nope, you don't even have to take the cap off. You undo the 2 bolts. You once you have it zeroed, and turn the cap and lock it back in place, and that's it. Like, there is a means to, if you say have to back the zero back down, there is a means to do that, and it's explained pretty well in the manual that comes with the scope. Now, the one downfall to the scope is that it's you know, you're talking high-end pricing on a scope like this or the ZP5 that I reviewed before. You know, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth going with high-quality rings like the Warren setup, because you're not going to be worried about whether your your scope rings are true, especially with a one-piece system like this. I'm not worried about whether I have to true the holes to each other. I know that they've done a good quality job. One thing that really impressed me about them too, or another thing I should say that really impressed me about the scope, or rings, I should say, is how they have actually done the threading in here. They have, you know, they've gone the extra mile. They put helicoils in here. If you're not familiar with those, look them up. What that effectively does is it in this case, it triples your surface area that your threads are riding on. So you have a lot stronger bite into the metal, and especially when you're using aluminum, which is really soft, you know, doing something like that's going to make this last a lot longer. I'm not worried about these things tearing out, because it's effectively allowed them to use a fine thread bolt, but a fine thread bolt that goes into a coarse thread, which is over double the size and roughly 3 times as much surface area, like I mentioned. You know, if you're an operator or something like that, or you're a competitor and you're traveling, you know, it's one less thing to have to worry about. If you know, have to make adjustments to the scope, you know, you're not worried that you're going to tear, you know, some of the aluminum threading out, because you're not actually threaded into the aluminum, you're threaded into the steel of the helicoils. So, you know, it's peace of mind, right? Altogether, I think this is a fantastic package, and you know, with the one-piece setup, the top, you've got the option of switching out to different calibers. You've got a nice full floating barrel. We're just using a gas system on this and not using a piston. You know, from my research, my opinion right now, and that could change at any time, is that the piston-driven systems, there's a little bit of vibration there, and I think they sacrifice a little bit of accuracy for their reliability. And maybe that sounds silly, but I just believe in maintaining firearms, and keeping them as clean as possible, so I'm not worried about having a failure in that case. You know, that would change if I was in a different situation. If I was in the sandbox or something like that, then yeah, that would be a different case. So don't all jump on me for saying that. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm going to shut this down, and I'm going to actually go on and talk about the SIG P320 compact pistol. We'll see if I can get through that. Like I say, I'm a bit rough at this right now. It's been a few months since I've been able to do a talk on anything. Again, this is an unsponsored review. These are products that I've personally bought. I'm out of pocket for these. They're products that nobody's paying me to do. You know, I paid for the scope, and paid for, you know, all the equipment you see on here. You know what? I feel really bad. Actually, a couple of things I forgot to mention on this rifle. You know, have a look at that baby. And I actually talked about this in another video a little earlier this summer. This is the TriggerTech AR-15 trigger, and what a fantastic trigger. The take-up on it is pretty much non-existent. It uses their patented roller technology, so you get a nice crisp break. It's very, very predictable. And I would recommend, you know, leave it right at the factory setting. It's really nice where it is, and very, very accurate. And I will mention too, like I said, not sponsored, but Warren was so kind to rush these rings out to me so we could do the review on the Minox scope. Been waiting about 6 months to do this, and you know, totally impressed with the setup.